Hey everybody, it's a wonderful Wednesday night. It is our 105th happy hour. You're seeing my face because Jeff Horowitz cannot be with us tonight. He is actually on a flight to Seattle. And so therefore you're stuck with me. So you didn't get the whole, hey gang, it's Wednesday, grab a cocktail, whatever, but you got the, hey everybody, glad you're here. I am super excited about our guest tonight, but first off, let me bring up Dr. Jennifer Bell, and we'll see what's going on in her world, and maybe she's got a little news for us, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes.
All right, so there is actually some legislation activity happening, which I know for the last couple of weeks we really haven't had a whole lot going on. But there are a few bills actually starting to stew, and dentistry is involved. So let's talk about a few of those. There is a CMS bill that's coming up, or actually it's a rule for expanding Medicaid services for Medicare services for medically necessary procedures. So, if we go back into the vault a bit, there's been some coverage presently in Medicare for accidental injury reconstruction surgeries related to oncology and pretreatment extractions for head and neck radiation. Those things have been covered. There's now a proposed rule to sort of expand the reach of what is medically necessary for Medicare to cover. So they're going through the open comment period, working through what the nuances might be. Some of the current questions that are being raised is, what is the definition of medically necessary? What would that really look like? How far can that reach go? Which I think we could all envision that could be expanded pretty far and wide. And so there's a lot of discussion about this particular rule. Again, the Federal Register is going to publish this rule at the end of July, and the open comment period will be through September. So if you feel really passionate about expanded dental services through Medicare, and that's a patient population you're hoping to serve, this could be a good time for you to be involved. Certainly, most of the major organizations are watching this really closely to sort of better help understand what this may look like for dentistry as a whole. In addition, we've got the Organized Dentistry Coalition, if you're not aware. It's a large group of organized dental groups, including the ADA and AGD, put together a letter this week, really encouraging and pushing for the House Education and Labor Committee to start really looking hard at the student loan reform bills that are currently before them. That went to both committee chairs to give them some extra encouragement to look at those particular reform bills and to give us some guidance moving forward about student loan debt. Obviously, this is specifically important for dental students because of the size of debt, and often the dental or the student loan reform acts often exclude what they would deem high income earners and other exclusions, which often dentists do not fall within. There's also the refinance options that have been a restriction for years as well, and the number of times you can refinance for more optimal student loan rates. So there's a lot of nuances within these particular bills. Frankly, since I was a dental student back in 2003 through 2007, these are the same topics that we've been discussing for many years now, even with my flip phone. And so, it's time for some consideration for some of these advanced student loan bills to be relooked at and given some new spin on it, I think. And particularly in light of how high student loan debt is now going, particularly with dental education. So that's obviously very interesting for us to consider when we're thinking about moving forward. There was pretty strong support for the new Oral Health Literacy Act that came through the House. There's more encouragement for it to go forward to the Senate, and really hoping the Senate picks that particular item up as well. And that would include Medicare dental benefit kind of embedded in that. There was also an interesting article that came out this week about oral manifestations of monkeypox, and that, I don't think that's something we've given a whole lot of discussion to not really fully understanding the depth and breadth of the disease. But there are some implications orally that you may see in your practice that could be an indicator. And there are obviously cases that are being diagnosed here in the US. The most common transmission rates, common transmission functionality of this disease aren't really what we would expect to see in dentistry, kind of like COVID, where we knew that this could be more respiratory in nature. Monkeypox is not, but we may be the first to see oral and facial lesions as a manifestation of the disease. So I'm going to publish that article on our private group so you can take a peek at that. And, it's just something else to consider in your differentials when folks are coming in presenting with different lesions or, different oral conditions that you can't quite figure out. And with that, I would like to bring Chad back. I'm really excited to have them on. First off, they live in my home state of North Carolina. Two, Anne has become a good friend through studying with Master Track with the AGD. So we have that in common. And we were chatting not that long ago at one of our courses doing nerdy things that we do. And she was telling me a little bit more about her husband and his journey and what he does for a living and what their relationship, not too detailed, and just so we know, but just a little bit of an insight kind of in their journey. And I immediately said, I would love for you to come on our show because I think this is a topic that we really need to bring to life. So let me introduce to you Anne, who is a dentist, and her husband, Ed, who is a therapist and a chief financial planner. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He's marrying those two disciplines together, creating a very eye-opening experience for what money relationships look like for marriages. And I think, frankly, in dental partnerships and also just good personal insight into your own money issues, personality styles, the four nuances that you find yourself in. And we're going to talk more about that. So that even if you're not married or at any point, if you're going to enter into a relationship where money may be involved, it is good to have a good financial IQ. And so with that, I would like to welcome our guest tonight. And Ed, if you want to spend just a few minutes to kind of walk us through your beautiful journey of what has led you to this platform and stage that you find yourself on. Not tonight, because this is low rent, but like the bigger stuff.
Well, all great comedians start in dive bars, and that's pretty much my story too. As a aspiring great financial therapist. Wait, financial therapist? What
is that a thing?
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah. See, right. Already, this is why I'm here with you guys. Is because anybody that will take me, I'll talk to.
Good.
I love it.
The old lady on the plane, the nice dental podcast people that my wife is like, hey, come on. To talking to CNBC reporters, CNN reporters, Time reporters, and everywhere in between, right? It's no secret. We all have a relationship with money. We all get frustrated, angry, embarrassed, feeling shamed about money at some point in our journey through life. And some of us live in those emotional states a lot more of the time than others. And so that's what I get to do, is help people deal with all the difficult emotions and thoughts and behaviors that come up around money.
So how did you start as a therapist and then move into the financial world? Did you start as a financial planner and then realize?
Oh, no. Well, I'll let Anne share her story in just a minute, but I pulled the world's greatest bait and switch on her. The thing is, I didn't even know I was doing it. That's how good I was. So when she was in dental school racking up student loan debt, I was busy being a professional firefighter, accumulating no debt. And we met, and she was like, you don't have any debt and you're going to college? And I was like, and I have a retirement account. She's like, you have a what?
And he had a house. And he had everything that I didn't have, that I was like in so much debt for. But I was like, oh, you're a firefighter. This will be great. And maybe if I start working, he's like, yeah, I think I might want to be a stay-at-home dad. I'm not sure I want to run into burning buildings anymore. And I was like, money, this is amazing. And he's
perfect.
Hell, and I'd have married him too.
Yeah, I know, right? Well,
I'm
we would have
serious.
fought over it.
Right.
But yeah, he was a firefighter. And then I was like, okay, I've gone through all the school I can possibly go through. And then I did my GPR. We moved to Charlotte. I was like, okay, we're good. So yeah, he got his MBA. And then he's like, I need to get my CFP. So then he became a certified financial planner, took a little pause. Then he's like, I think I really want to do counseling. I've always been interested in psychology. So then he got a master's in counseling. And then he was done. And then he's like, I think I want to do a PhD. I want to be a doctor too. Well, hell, bring it on. We're going to have all the degrees. You're going to have way more letters behind your name than mine. So then he ended up doing a master's in financial planning. So yeah, his letters go on and on and on and on and on. But he's really qualified.
Chad,
very smart.
Chad, you know what they say about guys in Texas with big trucks?
Yes, I do. Yes, we use that phrase quite often. Yes.
And JB, you said let's keep the profanity and the explicit.
That's good. That's good.
So I'm flirting with that.
No.
But,
if we want to go a little bit deeper, Ed, it's Dodge. Dodge is the problematic one.
Well, I won't tell my Ford friends that because they seem to say that about the Dodge guys.
Yeah, Dodge is problematic. Ford and Chevy are just a little bit less douchey, but Dodge is definitely problematic.
That's the bad one.
See, these were the things we argued about in the fire station.
Yeah.
I bet.
Was the worst truck to drive. Anyhow, so yeah, but Anna and I meet, and she's enamored with what I've got going on. Meanwhile, I'm enamored with what she's got going on because I'm thinking like, I've never met a doctor to be. This is crazy. And I'm like in her apartment, or I don't remember where, but I start reading like dental economics journals because she was doing hair and makeup, and I was like, what else am I going to do? So yeah, and I kind of knew doctors made more than firefighters. I mean, that's not hard to figure out, but I didn't really know. And then I see the numbers, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot more money than I make. How do you manage that? Like, what do you do with that? Like, and listen, I sat around the firehouse, and the guys complained about two things: their wives and money. Sorry, guys, that's really the reality. And so, I was like, the simple and obvious solution is learn how money works, and then you won't have any money conflicts. Wah, wah, wah.
Was it always that easy?
No. I think we got off to a pretty good start in the first handful of years, and I used my masterful Dave Ramsey skills to pay off debt and to get us focused. And man, we were cooking with fire. But 3 or 4 years roll on, and you hear, oh, you're married to a doctor. Oh, you're married to a doctor. Oh, you're married to a doctor. And it's like, oh yeah, but what about me? And so my own insecurities start bubbling.
Yep.
And,
your answer, Ed, should have been, no, I'm not married to a doctor. It's just a dentist.
Oh, Chad.
So brutal.
I heard it from my son today. Okay. My son is the comedian in our house. He says it to me all the time. So I had to throw it out there. Sorry.
I only subscribe to that when there's a medical emergency on the plane. I'm like, no.
That was not sexist or anything. That was just anti-dentite. I'm sorry.
I know. Your part, interestingly enough, so your dink is, your podcast. And so Dentist in the Know, we were dinks of a different type, the double income.
Right.
And we had a big group of dual income, no kid families. And we got together all the time, did all sorts of fun stuff. Super carefree. Finances didn't seem to be an issue because they kind of weren't. We were both working. We had insurance benefits from his corporate job at the time, and life was pretty easy, and I was an associate, and so I was making just taking home a paycheck. It was pretty easy at that point.
But then we had I had the inspiration that I wanted to go back to school to be a therapist, and we were ready for a kid. And so, honey, the brilliant idea is I found this graduate program. It's at a seminary, and the program is on the weekends, Friday night and all day Saturday. So we can have a kid. I'll watch him during the week while you work. And then I'll go to school and you can watch the kid. And so we worked into that transition, and I got to hang out with all of her friends during the week at their houses with their babies and ours. And my buddies, by the way, my buddies' wives, and went to work. And it was kind of awkward meeting up with our friends on the weekend when I had more to relate to with the wives than I did the husbands who were grinding it out and trying to make money to support their families. like I'm an enlightened guy. Look, my values perfectly say women make as much money, go do your thing. But inside,
Yeah.
didn't quite mesh up so much. So trying to figure all that stuff out, I have parents, she has parents, surprise, most of us do.
Yeah.
And, our parents have their own kind of wonky things that happen with money. And we're kind of watching some of those things unfold. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? So it just came out of this real need to try to better understand what's going on for us, what's going on for our family. How do I better help? Because just telling people what to do with money doesn't seem to work.
Right.
And so
in your book, you talk about the 4 types of
attachment.
With money. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a major psychological theory called attachment theory, and it grows out of the study of how we form our relationships starting in our earliest caregiving environment. So the way our parents tend to us then translates into a relationship map in our brain that we then bring into our adult intimate relationships. Does that track pretty well, I think?
I'm Googling it. We're good.
Okay. I was like, would I lose him? I think
no. I'm fascinated by this. So I was like feverishly typing it in. I'm like, I want to be able to reference. I'm good.
Yes, absolutely. So attachment theory is a major psychological theory. It's used a lot in the field of counseling, especially couples counseling, to try to understand and predict what's going on between a couple, right? Like in dentistry, you have lots of science that helps you know, like you're talking about monkey disease and all that stuff, right? We sit around and we're talking about like, hey, how did people's parents mess them up? What's the predictive path here? Oh, sorry, mom and dad. We love you.
Well, you're messing up your own kids now. It's fine.
Yes, we just won't find out for 20 years.
It just balances out.
Yeah, well, that's part of the goal, is to mess them up less.
A little less.
Yes. We'll see how well the goal is met. But the 4 types are secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And so the very high level, if you're securely attached, that means you're generally comfortable with yourself. You're generally comfortable in an intimate interpersonal relationship. When you feel distressed, you can turn to that other person and say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling blah, blah, blah. And they're going to respond if they're also secure and say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That must be difficult. Do you want to talk more about it? That kind of thing, right? If you're anxiously attached, you typically have a lower view of yourself and a higher view of other people. And you're kind of that people pleaser, right? You're wanting to be liked and accepted, and you'll go to great lengths to have that happen, but it doesn't always feel like it lands. And even if you do get affirmation, you're doing a good job, it doesn't sink in. That's this guy.
I was going to say.
Exhibit A.
B. Okay.
Here, yes. The other side of that is the avoidant dismissive type. They're your cold, keep you at an arm's length distance. I'm going to do me, you do you. And because I can't really trust that other people will be there to know my needs. So why bother asking or trying? And if you have emotional problems, well, that's on you. Why are you coming to me with your stuff? That 4th category, disorganized, vacillates back and forth between those 2 positions. So that's the psychological framework that then comes into how we make money decisions. So if you reflect back to what we were just talking about with that story, anxious attachment type, always trying to please my wife, never really sure that I have. And even though when she reassures me, I'm okay, I'm good, you're fine. Yes, honey.
Dismissive.
I don't feel that way. I'm missing it. And so it's really set, an ongoing dynamic that I think we've gotten much better at understanding. We have vocabulary to talk about it. She now realizes like she's not doing something wrong because her husband's chronically insecure.
This is actually true. So,
but it's a little tiring hearing your husband like, "Are you sure you love me? Are you like?"
Yeah.
I'm being a little extreme, but it would show up in a lot of different ways over time, and it's that the money dynamic has only magnified those layers of insecurity. And so as we've worked through that, and I've now spent the last 8-9 years as a couples therapist working with many couples, that pattern is so familiar and so prevalent in couples that are coming to meet me that what we're really working on is their relational health so that they can actually make effective financial decisions together. But I help them bridge that relationship.
And do you see your financial relationships the same from your personality in your personal and also in your business? Does it manifest itself differently? Does it look very similar, or
Like how it, well, I mean, it's different, I guess, in some ways, because things at home I have to discuss with Ed. I mean, we're a couple, we've got to make the household decisions together. It's a little bit different at work because I'm a solo private practitioner. So I don't have a partner or like multiple partners or, a bunch of associates where I have to really kind of weigh in a lot of that. I came from a couple associateships that taught me a lot about what I didn't want to do in private practice. And when the opportunity came that I had to leave one and I was able to buy this practice, I was kind of grateful at that point in time to become a solo dentist and not have to deal with somebody else because of some former problems. 10 years in, as my kids are starting to get older, I'm kind of thinking like it would be nice to have somebody, even if it just means flexibility to travel or to be sick on those, times that life happens. But I guess related to the financial discussion, there's a lot more give and take, but I think generally I feel more secure now. I will say 100% when I first owned the practice, I always deferred to Ed. He had left his job. He had more of the financial background. I had zero. And growing up, loved my parents, but very, very little advice or insight. So you go to college, you get all the credit card offers. I could have got myself in a whole lot of trouble and debt, as we all could have. I got lucky that I didn't, try to pay it off, and had little, I guess, examples of good financial stewardship, but nothing explicit. So I kind of learned as I went. Had I married somebody else, I think I probably could have gone down a very different path of not being great on retirement or responsibility with finances. But early on with owning the practice, I deferred to him. He did all the spreadsheets, all the projections, all the bill pay, all the everything. When stuff didn't get done, like if a bill maybe got paid late or something else, it got missed, I would get angry because I felt like I didn't know what was going on, or we didn't have frequent enough meetings. And he was essentially operating kind of like an office manager.
Right.
And that was tough for me to swallow. And at a certain point, when he had gone through a couple graduate degrees and then he opened up his own financial therapy practice, it was important for him to be able to devote enough time to that to really grow it. So I had to take over. And in some ways, initially, I was kind of like, hey, just give it to me. I did this early on in our marriage when he was doing his MBA. I can handle this. This is fine. Give me some advice and help me in ways that you have training to do that. But from like the logistical everyday stuff, I've got it. And I think it helped when I finally jumped back more into my own finances. And so it was it seems a little backwards that I almost offloaded it too much. But when I took back over myself, I felt like I was more vested in the numbers in my own practice. And there's still things that I feel like I should do better. I should check more often on, certain parts of the bank account or certain parts of the cash flow or certain reports and Dentrix, but there's only so many hours in the day. Ultimately, you got multiple kids as well. You got to get home, and my kids are still young. So it's trying to balance out what's essential, what would be nice to do, and what's kind of like a luxury. And so, but I think I'm more invested in it now. As far as our family finances, I do a lot of the logistical bill pay stuff. Ed does more of the long-term planning. That's always been his best strength, I guess.
And do you see oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
Jen.
Go ahead, Jennifer, please. Ladies first.
No, I mean, you've been very quiet, so please.
Well, you made me forget what I was going to ask, damn it. So go ahead, because I'm
Always
sure it's still on the tip of your tongue.
Well, I was going to ask Ed if he sees a difference. If you were to look at your therapy clients as a collective group, those who own small businesses, maybe one person of that couple owns a small business, but in reality, you own it as a couple, even though it may not be your business. Right. Do you see a difference between couples who have small business embedded as part of their relationship versus two that have corporate jobs? or something else, or, and two, what are some of the challenges? Because many of our viewers, obviously, are small business owners or a part of small business.
Right.
What are some of the challenges or pitfalls that, often will happen to either the small business owner or within the confines of a marriage as they're sort of balancing the dual roles?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges, whether you're a corporate or entrepreneur couple, is around spending and income. And because for a lot of my corporate clients, as well as entrepreneurs, there's kind of this sense that, well, I can always just make more money.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening, instead of having difficult money conversations about where spending's at and where it needs to go, they just bypass that and go and crank the financial wheel a little more to try to cover the money. The challenge is then you're working more, and then there's more money, and so then more spending happens. So then you crank the wheel some more, and then you're just running faster and faster to crank more and more money through the family system, but you really haven't addressed the underlying issues. How much are we spending? Why are we spending so much? What's important to us as a couple? And it's that balance between, kind of an abundance, unlimited mindset and reality, practicality, and how hard do you want to work? And being able to sit down and have those conversations with each other are really challenging and vulnerable. And, it's easy to start feeling like you're stepping on each other's toes because you can't tell me what to do. And so how do you talk with each other about spending patterns without feeling like one's the parent and one's the child?
I love that. And I think that JB and Ann and I can all relate to this, and you've probably heard it before. It absolutely drives me nuts. And this just pertains to dentists. And I'm sure that orthopedic surgeons and other doctors
We're all the same.
have something else that they say.
Yeah.
But it drives me nuts. Like when you're out and one of your buddies is like, hey, check out this new Rolex that I bought. It's only 8 more crowns this year. I cannot stand that mindset. And I've heard people say it so many times, it just drives me nuts. And so when you're speaking to that, that's the way that I kind of relate to it. And I hear somebody in the back of my head saying, oh, that's only 8 more crowns or 5 more root canals or this or that. And it's like, okay, whatever, that's kind of the wrong mindset, but do what you wish,
Well, and it's really it is the blending of kind of the business mindset and profit maximization and the medical ethic of doing what's right for the client.
Sure.
Right. And like, how do we find that balance or tension between those two things, between profit motive and ethical patient care?
Yeah.
And how much treatment do they need? And it can be a cycle, right? If you're hyper focused on materialism, there's some psychological research that says that you likely have a lower sense of personal security, a lower sense of self. And so you're using the materialistic orientation to compensate for that. And so that's not one way to look at it. And so I think you have to hit some soul searching sometimes and say, what's really important to me? And I'm nothing against Rolex watches or nice cars. They're great things if they fit within your budget. But yeah, if you're consumed with that, it can be a real challenge, or if your partner is. And one of the lenses that I've really come to have to look at more closely, and it's been challenging, is beneath that and in that developmental history, where's the trauma for my clients? Because the trauma is what sets the stage for an insecure sense of self, right? When you have bad things happen to you, whether it's emotional abuse or neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, parental addiction, those types of things really start to erode a child's sense of self. And we can use our professional identities to try to overcompensate for those insecurities and those past pains. But it's like it becomes an addiction where you can't outperform yourself into feeling good about yourself. And so that's where feeling good about yourself becomes more of an inside job than an outside job.
So I'm going to, I have so many questions. I'm not going to get to all of them, but my first question is, I'm asking this one for a friend.
Yes.
Has the advent of Amazon changed the conversations that you have amongst your clientele?
Yeah, I think it's just changed from Home Shopping Network to Amazon.
Yeah. QVC.
Nice
Yeah,
throwback.
QVC, absolutely.
Oh, QVC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
get a lot, like a bigger uptick in appointments during Prime Day
Yeah.
or after, like the month after? The books are a lot.
I wish
fuller?
I could flip my camera right now to everything that arrived on Prime Day.
Prime Day!
Hold on. It's like,
That's funny.
No,
So-
the reality is we live in an environment that's ever increasingly easier to buy things. So yes, I think just for the everyday person, it's much easier to spend than it ever has been.
Mhm.
Right? Like, and look,
It
the
so
marketers
is.
the marketers are the best psychologists out there.
Yeah.
They understand people better than psychologists. And the therapist, when I started to try to tell them this when I was training, did not like it. And, understanding how someone works psychologically doesn't always mean you're using it for their good.
Right.
Right. So there's a whole field called neuromarketing, which basically studies how your brain responds to marketing images to increase your rate of buying and consumption. Right. Again, this is the whole business side of things. And so, look, we live in a capitalist society. I function as a capitalist. Most of us do. And it depends on how extreme you become about it, really, I guess.
So let's get deep here.
I hope your friend got the answer they wanted.
Oh, I think I knew the answer.
Those are not your Prime boxes.
Jeff, we do have an 8:00 appointment for our family tomorrow morning, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to get deep here for a second, and Jeff Jeff's texting and sitting there.
Jeff's our other co-host.
Whoever the hell you are.
I answered to lots of
JB, whatever you are. Okay. Ed and Ann, you both can probably participate in this, but if you've got a young dentist that's just graduating from dental school, and let's say that they have a lot of debt, which is maybe a good possibility these days, what is the most solid piece of advice that you could give them, or where would you say that they start? Because I've seen a lot of really good questions about income, about investing, about saving. I've seen a lot of horrible questions about, hey, do you know a good Porsche dealer in Napa, California? Because I just signed as an associate there and I got a $300,000 bonus or whatever. But no, what's the best piece of advice that you can give someone that's just starting out, that's really looking towards financial independence and maybe an early retirement?
Well, you answer and then I'll
you formulate your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably my best piece of advice. I mean, I graduated at a time when I was able to dial back my loan rates and have an interest rate that was really low. Friends of mine that graduated 5 years, 10 years later, totally different story. So right now, I'm sure they're running into a whole different situation in terms of how much interest they're paying on their loans. I had lots of friends, either general dentists or if they specialize, went out, bought like a Mercedes, bought a Porsche, bought whatever it was, they got something big, is live below what you think you can. Don't buy a house. Like they'll approve you for some huge amount. Get a smaller house, start off early. If the student loans are the biggest kind of debt piece, then maybe being an associate, having a retirement plan with some, corporation might be a really good option, but invest early, put away some money, because then if you decide to buy a practice or buy into a practice and your income kind of takes a dip before it comes back up, at least you've got some of that nest egg growing in the interim, and that's working for you. Like the compounding interest and the time is going to work for you. So it might, I can't speak because their situation might not be the same, but I'd say invest a chunk early as much as you can, live below your means. I think I'm fortunate that I'm not as driven or attracted by shiny objects. So like a Rolex or a fancy card isn't the thing that, attracts me the most, but I had plenty of friends where that was the case. But try to live more frugally than maybe you think you should, because you just graduated and you're like, I've got DDS or DMD after my name and I can just do whatever I want. it'll catch up with you quickly. And I have, some friends that haven't invested, and we're now, we graduated in 2005, so 17 years out, and like retirement is not there or not growing, and that will catch up quickly. And it worries me for them. And I hope that, they can invest and try to catch up. But sometimes when you've started early, even if you've got gaps, like I had gaps when I bought my practice, and we were paying staff on credit cards just to keep them, and like barely making it by. And it was lean, slim pickings. He wasn't working. We had no medical benefits. We had,
damn you, Ed, weren't working.
I know, right? So, but it all worked out. But don't go in the shame spiral.
You
This
hit me in the
goes.
shame spiral.
No, we could go all night. Girls are really good at this.
Really good. So I guess that's a long-winded answer to say live below your means. If the student loans are a big,
I love it.
Debt worry or concern, maybe just getting your clinical skills like really solid under your belt working for somebody else. It's probably a really good idea. And then figure out where you want to put down your roots, where you want to buy a practice, if you want to buy a practice, but try to do that and get some of those debts like down, or get that nest egg at least started. So I'll turn over to the financial guy, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, yeah, I think that's the financial side of things, right? And that's the obvious stuff that we talk about, and getting that foundational knowledge about how money works, and it's specifically around compound interest. That's like, if you want to learn a financial concept and you're 26 and just came out of dental school, start with compound interest. Just go straight to that. Forget budgeting, forget anything else. Learn compound interest and understand that concept and see what that does for you. But I think at a more practical level, and it's funny, I was doing a presentation for a group of planners earlier today, and they said, one of the planners said, one of the most important questions I've learned to ask every one of my clients is, what did you see your parents do with money? And how has that shaped your financial expectations? And bringing that into your financial consciousness to recognize what you're doing and what you may be reacting to or reacting against is very important, right? So you may have a new dentist that just came out of dental school and their parents were both dentists, which is pretty high. I'm surprised at how many multi-generational dental families. And so they've seen what mom and dad have been able to kick off and do in the life that they lived. And they're rushing as fast as they can to get back to that standard of living, because mom and dad aren't going to fully fund it for them. So
sometimes they will.
So that's one side of it, right? But the other side of it is that student that comes from a more working class or poor background, who's worked their ass off, gotten good grades, and now all of a sudden they're in this whole new financial world where it's like head spinning almost, what they can do or not do, and what does that mean? And so you have kind of different journeys. And I think, so one, compound interest is very practical. 2, know about your parents and your parents' history and how are you responding to that. But then 3, as soon as you get into an intimate relationship, you better stop talking money with them. Yeah. Because your real risk is not under accumulating, it's divorce. Yeah. You want to blow up a financial plan quickly, get divorced. Yep. And the challenge is divorce usually happens in your mid 40s to early 50s, which wipes out any progress that you have made. And so carrying the alimony, carrying the child support burden, and this is not anybody that's been through divorce or feeling this, please hear no shame or condemnation. Entering into divorce is a big mess, and I know you didn't choose to go there. But if you can get into marriage counseling early, if you're having any kind of relationship problems, right? You guys know this in dentistry too, how much worse things get each 6 months someone defers dealing with periodontal disease. Right? If you're having relationship distress, that might be normal, but it doesn't mean it's healthy. Yeah, you might have a little pain in your bite, and that might be normal. Everyone's teeth hurt a little bit. Yeah, that doesn't mean it's good, buddy. Come on. So, right, like the sooner you can get intervention, the research shows that most people don't end up in marriage counseling until about 7 years. Well, can you imagine delaying treatment on periodontal disease for 7 years? How many teeth do you have left? Right. The reality is most of the couples that are coming to see me are having in relationship heart attack. Sad. It's really sad. And it's very hard to help them come back from that, because by that time they're deep in contempt, they're deep in resentment, they're deep in the financial hole, and it's a long journey out. And so I'm not a miracle worker. I mean,
Yeah.
the Ed and or Lorraine, whoever the wizards were, they might be able to do it, but I don't have financial exorcisms that I can perform.
No.
I mean, therapy, people want fast, quick therapy, but the reality is therapy is slow and process oriented for the most part. It's not sexy and it's not exciting, but it does work if you'll give it the time to do it.
I think, well, one, y'all brought up this should be like a must watch for new grads to figure out next steps.
Oh my God. Of course.
I think,
yeah.
What?
I said, of course. Yeah.
For sure. Because I think the other thing that no one ever talks about is this is a perishable skill. It doesn't last forever. You know, what we do is mental and physical and emotional as well. And we all know folks who've had to leave the industry early for different reasons or hobble through longer than they had to because of financial concerns. And so, you know, I think, and kind of danced around it, but what I heard is, you know, living within your means and managing your debt or eliminating your debt is freedom. It's freedom to choose. It's freedom to open a practice. It's freedom to retire. It's freedom to quit. It's freedom to do something different. It's freedom to work 3 days a week, 12 days a week, whatever it is that you want to do. Not being a service to your debt is what gives you those professional freedoms. And especially with a skill that is so perishable as what we have. If your eyes give, your ears give, your neck gives, your back gives, your hips, your legs, whatever it is, or just your general emotional and mental stability give, then not having the debt to service gives you the freedom to choose. And I love that. I love that that was a part of your message. And the other piece of that very few people talk about is how much pressure or bad advice comes from the dental supply reps. And look, we've got vendors on our channel and they participate. And it's not that they're ill intended, but you know, oh, you just section 179 it. Don't worry about it. You'll work that out later. And what no one tells you is 5 years in, there's no more tax advantage, but there's all the payments that you now are servicing that you aren't making enough money to pay. And so, you know, finding good counsel, either through a good financial therapist, a good financial planner, somebody who's got your back a little bit more than those who are making direct commission.
Not selling you a product.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If they're selling you a product, they do not have your full best interest in mind.
So how does one find, because I even struggle with this, how does one find good support from someone who just generally wants you as an individual or a couple to be successful financially and aren't going to sell you an insurance policy or a CIRAC machine or, you know, whatever else it is that they might have in their bag?
Well, I think one of the best things that you can do is actually start talking to your peers that are 15 to 20 years older than you. And you got to talk to 5 to 10 of them minimum and ask them about who's in your corner and counseled you. Who have you worked with in the past? What did you learn? And what are you learning now? Because that's a big piece. It's the financial mentorship and relationship mentorship. And senior docs don't have anything to get from you, right?
True.
I mean, what's their motive? Yeah. Unless they want to try to sell you your practice, but you're already in practice, and as colleagues, they don't have a whole lot to lose, and there's not a lot of cost to them, to be honest. And you know what you're going to start finding out is some of them are saying, "Man, I haven't talked about this. I waited too long. I wish I would have started when you are." Oh, okay. That's valuable, but you might
write that down.
Yeah, write that down. But you're also going to find that 1 or 2 docs that's going to point you to the advisors that are in the know, that are really the ones that are advocates for dentists. And that, you know, there's a lot of people that put dentist on their top list. So I came up, you know, so I left firefighting. The first place that I went to was to work for a financial planning firm, Reed Insurance Agency.
Yes.
I was 24, 25 years old. I got my life and health insurance license, and they said, you know, who do you want to target? And they said, oh, you're married to a dentist. You should target dentist. And the reality is someone that is brand new to the financial services industry, excuse my language, doesn't know their head from their ass.
Yeah.
And they get trained sales techniques on products. They really have no idea about how the products work mathematically or financially. It's a huge risk to you. And so I'm a huge proponent. This is a general statement, but I think the folks, and I'll name them, I think the two financial planning organizations that have the highest standards for ethics and professionalism are NAPFA, the National Association for Personal Financial Advisors. They only allow fee-only advisors in their network, so no commissions. And then you have the XY Planning Network, which is also a fee-only network of financial planners. And they will do different fee structures with you. And so I think that those are two groups to really start looking around and poking around. But you want to know what is their level of experience, what percentage of your practice is dentist, because there's industry specific knowledge about the numbers you should be shooting for. And this is something we found in our own financial planning journey of working with different planners is we've had a couple accountants, and we've had different planners where it's like you go talk to two different planners, you give them the same set of data and they come out with very different recommendations
and different approaches too.
And what they're telling you about how much you should save does matter.
Thank you.
I like that.
I'm gonna post your book tomorrow, and because I want folks to have other avenues to access your information, and we'll post the links to your current podcast and other avenues to reach out to you, because I feel very confident that this, number one, will resonate with so many of our members, but two, I also feel very confident that many of us would directly benefit from having someone like you or you in our lives to help improve our marriages, our relationship with money, and just lead us towards a better professional and personal success. So thank you for taking time out to educate folks and continue to push your passion, which I think is truly beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's fun to be at this stage in the game. We heard you talking about having the young dentist or aspiring dentist in your office, and that's the nice thing about being in our 40s at this point, right? Is we do have enough wisdom and perspective to really be helpful, and we still have a lot of longevity ahead of us. So
That's
we have
right.
a lot to look forward to, and helping as many dentists get comfortable with their finances. The statistics, I don't know the current statistics off my top of my head, but when you look at dental economics and some of these other trade pubs that put out statistics about how many dentists are underfunded for retirement,
It's
staggering. It is 40 to 60%, something like that at least. And if you think about how much money is going to pass through your hands over the course of a 25-year, 30-year career, there's just no reason for that. And yet there are so many psychological reasons that happens. And so if you find that you're struggling to get on track with your personal finances, a financial therapist is who you want to work with. If you're in a place where you're ready to take action and implement financial recommendations, and you and your partner are on the same page and can execute, a financial planner is who you want to work with. Right? So I'm more like, if you have trouble with dieting and staying on a diet, you come see me. If you have trouble with your money diet, you come see me.
That's right.
If you know how to diet and you can go work out at the gym and you're looking to tweak and improve, go work with a financial planner.
I love it. I love it.
Chad, you need both.
Yeah.
Yes. And you always need a financial planner. In my book, you always need a financial planner, because here's the other value that a financial planner plays. They're a neutral third party. They're not going to bed with either of you. Hopefully.
In the best case scenario.
But here's the other trap that a lot of money experts, part-time money experts, tried to convince their spouse that their ideas are the right ideas to do. Made this mistake many, many times. And she's not convinced that my ideas are the best ideas. And I'm not really doing a great job of trying to understand what her ideas are.
Yeah.
So
he wasn't a neutral third party. Let's put it that way. So
no, I had my own interests that I was more interested in representing than hers.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
We all do.
And
it's human. It's okay. Like, Because, the other thing is you can over defer and be like, whatever you want, honey, whatever you want.
Yeah.
That phrase, happy wife, happy life, biggest line of crap.
Yeah, but you also are riding the Titanic simultaneously. Like you're basically saying, I'm not the captain, not my fault. Whatever happens, happens. I mean, he made all the decisions, but we're still sinking in the ocean. So probably going to have to get involved at some point.
And I'm going to get in the dinghy. So good luck. So.
Wives and children all gone.
Adults, we are adults, which means we have to do adulting, #adulting.
Hashtag hard. Hey, one thing I was thinking, you were asking about other really good advice. I think the other side note, not to get on a too big of a tangent, but disability insurance.
Oh, 100%.
Starting that really early. I think I got very lucky. They did a presentation when I was in dental school, and I got it before I'd even graduated. And I had there's a couple people, like one the class ahead and one I think behind. And the two guys actually on both of them had to drop out for different reasons because they already had issues before they even graduated. And then I've met probably half a dozen people over the years that had to, retire early, like in their 30s or early 40s for head, neck, other pain issues. It's such a big deal. And if you can get it before you get sick or before you have problems, it's such a big deal. And get the ONOC clause so that if you can't actually be a dentist, you get the disability insurance.
Yes.
Some of them, they're like, oh, it's a cheaper policy. But if you can be a teacher or a janitor,
you're screwed.
You're good. You're screwed. You don't get any benefit. So trying to make sure that it's specific, like if you can't be a dentist, you can function in every aspect of your life, but you've got that little bit of tremor that obviously is not going to work well holding a drill, then you can retire as a dentist and actually get the benefits. So that I thought of it while we were all talking, and because, it does happen, is probably just emphasizing that. And that can be at any age. If you haven't gotten it and you're 40 and you're still healthy, or you're 50 and you're still healthy, I still think there's a benefit unless you have already invested really well and you're like, hey, I can fund my retirement and I can retire early at 50. Maybe you don't need it. But if you haven't done anything, it's probably still a good safety net for you and your family.
Well, that's our next show with them. We'll have you back.
Okay.
We're going to do the top 10 things you have to know financially to not suck. That's a catchy title, right?
Like 10 guests. We bring them on individually. And like Ann's would be disability insurance.
Yes.
And then we have another guest that's like, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
No divorce. And that guy guy or gal has to have had minimum of 3.
And then the next guest would be like no Amazon, and that's Chad.
Correct.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah.
Correct.
Hey, thank you.
I'll be your Section 179 gal. I'm happy to jump on that grenade.
Happy fun there.
Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks,
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Take care.
Chad, thanks for sticking on the whole time.
It was fantastic.
You missed me, didn't you? Just say it.
I did miss you. Yeah. All right. You want to close this out, or you want me to?
No, I just want to sit here and stare at your beautiful face all night.
Well, you know what? I'll close this out because I want to say something. The couple we had on tonight, they talked a lot about finances, but one thing that I noticed throughout the whole thing is they talked a lot about partnership and how important it is to have a life partner that you believe in, that you confide in, that you share the same beliefs as, and if you don't, get yourself a damn counselor. All right. Mm-hmm. That is so important. There's Jeff posted something a couple weeks ago. There's no shame in counseling. There's no shame in therapy. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. And I would love to be a fly on the wall in his office one day a week just to see the kind of stuff that comes through there. But anyhow, regardless, great show, great guest. Thank you all so much. So relatable. And everybody, I hope you have a great week.
Safe travels, Jeff. We'll see y'all next week.
See y'all.
And that wraps up another podcast for Dentists in the Know. On behalf of Dr. Jennifer Bell, Dr. Chad Duplantis, and myself, remember that we've got a great profession, so let's make it a great day, Dinks.